Welcome, everyone. We are on another episode of Love, Sex, and Leadership, and very excited to have a dear friend, a mentor who's come into my life many, many years ago, and a really powerful being who I feel like has transitioned between many different worlds and a lot of the subjects I talked about here on this show. And very excited to have Pele Ohad on the show with us. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Aaron. Happy to be here.
Hmm. So, the things I discuss on this podcast, and really, what I find people are most interested in is this kind of conversational dynamics around, conscious sexuality, around love, around leadership. And, from knowing your journey and really the journey that you've been on from being really a Kabbalistic rabbi and transitioning and I believe almost getting kind of taken away from some of that community because your ideas were almost a little bit too much in some ways. And now, the last many years working a lot in this field around conscious sexuality. Yeah, I'm very grateful to have a dialogue, and really the place I want to start right from, like, what always is interesting to me is where the impetus to make a transition and to be the fish streaming, going upstream and all the fish are going downstream, and like where that drive initiated from to really stand forth the way you have in this world. And I just want to really honor and acknowledge you for doing that. It's beautiful to know you and have you as a brother and a friend in this life. So thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. It's funny. You remind me of a very Jewish laws of what is kosher. And one of the things about a duck, how do you know that a duck is kosher, is if it can swim against the stream. Because otherwise, if it cannot swim against the stream, it's not healthy enough. But yeah, I'm one of those ducks, I would say, that still is kosher. It is challenging, but some of us just have it in our nature to be those who open paths in the jungle and going with a machete and searching for new paths, recognizing that the path that humanity is on now is not a sustainable one.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We live in a culture, in a society that is not sustainable. I realized that when I was in the Orthodox Jewish world. I did not grow up like this. I grew up secular. I was looking for truth. I was looking for meaning. I was looking for connection. And, I went through Buddhism, shamanism, and found Kabbalistic Judaism, which is my ancestral path, and just like dove right in. Became a rabbi, became a teacher. And then I realized that the way that Jews hold their own way is also not real. It's not true. It's unhealthy. Let's put it like that. And a lot of the mysteries that attracted me in were not actually the way that they live their lives. So it was like, okay, I found myself searching for other ways, and love and sexuality, sacred sexuality, the sacredness of eros. Actually, when I realized that in the ancient teachings of Kabbalistic teachings and the mysteries, when I realized that, and I realized how far it is from the way that Kabbalistic Jews live their lives today, I realized I need to move on. So, in the ancient times, it says that when people were studying the mysteries, there was the mysteries of the Merkava, the mysteries of Genesis, of like how to create, basically the creation of the physical world, the leading, how to guide yourself through the world, and the mysteries of sexuality.
Mm.
Sitrei Arayot, as it's called in ancient Talmudic Hebrew, but and it's connected to the scroll of Song of Songs, Shir Shirim, in the Bible,
Mhm.
and that was used as sacred mantras in ancient times of love and sexuality, was used as sacred mantras to go in the chambers of the temple. So this is not happening today, and I was just like, since I'm a truth seeker, so it took me away, even though I got a lot of threats and direct and indirect, uh, that people don't like it when you leave those words. Um, yeah, but I'm still doing the same, you know,
Mhm.
walking in paths that are less traveled, um, with a machete and trying to open paths. Um,
Mhm. Mhm.
and by definition, us, the pioneers, are getting scratched many
Mm.
times. Many times we walk in paths that eventually we say, you know what, don't take it. You know, uh,
Uh-huh.
or when you go this way, here are some ways that you need to take care of yourself so you don't fall from this cliff or whatever it is. Um, and it's sometimes difficult because the people that walk behind you, if um, they want a paved path, and some of the paths will be paved, and some of the paths are actually, yeah, they are a bit dangerous, and they are for people who are more advanced, or you just make a mistake, and that's the thing, that we make mistakes.
Mhm. Mhm.
We all make mistakes, even
Mhm.
leaders, even teachers,
Mm.
and because we're human.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. No, I feel that, and I can feel the vulnerability with that as well, and it's beautiful. And I guess what's fascinating to me is, just hearing you speak and, seeing many, ancient tantric texts and many ancient, books and scrolls that speak quite highly and firmly around the what the eros, sacred eros, has been brought up into the world. And just the question that comes alive for me is like, why, in many ways, do you feel like the um, why do you feel like, in many ways, that they feel like those things have had to be taken away? That like people can't have those conscious conversations. They can't actually lead with that. And in many ways, exactly what you were saying, it's like, oh, that's forbidden to speak about eros in religion. That's forbidden that there, but it's actually in the text in which this religion and things are formed from. So I'm curious your take on that, especially when it comes to the vulnerability of leadership and why it feels like so much of that has been taken away from our vocabulary, from our way of being, when actually it's inside the roots of our civilization.
Yeah, these are big questions. Um, to my understanding, Eros is a sacred power.
Hmm.
Um, Eros is one of the powers that creates the universe. It's not connected to humans, actually. Eros is the power that connects subatomic particles together and created matter.
Hmm.
Um, Eros is what brings atoms together to create molecules, and molecules to clash into each other. In my understanding, the sun is a constant orgasm,
Hmm.
because you know what's happening in the sun. What is the fuel that fuel the sun and all other stars? It's atomic fusion, nuclear fusion.
Hmm.
So two separate atoms that are attracted to each other so powerfully that they fuse together to become one. It's the two that becomes one. What is sacred union if not that?
Mm-hmm.
And this
Mm-hmm.
is what's happening. This is what's happening in the sun all the time.
Mm.
Um, the nuclear power that humans uh, took control of to a certain degree is the splitting atom
Mm-hmm.
and creating separation. And this is how atomic nuclear power came to be. But the nuclear power on the sun is from nuclear fusion, which is lovemaking. And just think about it, that the sun is a constant lovemaking, an
Mm.
explosion of eros in every millisecond that
Mm.
you know shines light to eternity. And every part of life on earth is affected and actually happening because of this. We
Mm-hmm.
we
Mm-hmm.
live from the power of eros. The ancient Greek called eros a god,
Mm.
and this is so different from contemporary religion. And religion today, religious people are shy when they become erotic. Like, you go to synagogue, you go to church, and it's the kind of the last place that you should be erotic, or make love or be sexual, um, because kind of God is doesn't like it.
Mm.
In Christian tradition, it's total sin. In Judaism, it's not, but it's totally unappreciated in synagogue. But the ancient Greek, they saw eros as a god, which means when you become aroused, when you become erotic, you are visited
Mm.
by a god.
Mm.
You're enthusiastic. Enthusiastic comes from in Greek, from a word that comes from being excited about the divinity.
Mm.
There is a divine power that comes into you when you become excited erotically.
Mm.
And this is how life is being created. Eros
Mm.
is the only way that brings souls into matter.
Mm.
There's nothing, fucking nothing on earth that can that can connect this from soul realm to matter,
Mm.
except sexuality.
Mm.
No scripture, no sacred text, no temple. There's no meditation that I know that can take matter and bring a soul into it, and it will be a baby.
Mm.
The only
Mm.
meditation that does it is what we call what love making is.
Mm.
So I look at Eros as a big, deep mystery of the universe that is here from before us, will be here after us. It goes through us. We are like perforated uh, bead, beads, sorry, perforated beads on a necklace,
Mm.
endless necklace. And the thread that goes through us is Eros.
Mm. Mm.
Each generation or each person is a bead. But what goes through us is an eternal power that we call Eros.
Mm.
But we forgot how to relate to it as like, this is sacred power. This is cosmic power. Life, it's the mystery of life, and we forgot it.
Mm.
And
Mm.
it's the mystery of love, of allurement, of attraction. And we forgot it, and we made it something to be ashamed of, and something to hide, and something to be confused about. And of course, we are so confused. In Kabbalah, sexuality is called Yesod. In the tree of life, the Sphira is the Sphira of Yesod, which literally means foundation. Literally, to say sexuality is the foundation of your tree of life. And if the foundation is not stable, of course, the whole building is not stable. So, in some ways, it's so big and it's so fundamental that how could you not speak about it? But I'll tell you how. Because people who are, from my experience, people who are aware in their sexuality, in their eroticism, they are awake, they're not good obeying citizens. They will not go to war because their stupid leaders told them to go to kill or be killed. They will not just obey. They are autonomous. The thing is that, and this is part of what, lately I pay a lot of attention and work a lot, with my partner Katara, a lot of what we are writing and teaching and working now is on this combination of what we call epic love, which is where love, freedom, and empowerment, which is in the tree of life, it's the right, left, and the center, the three columns. But love, freedom, and empowerment are coming together. They're just different faces of the same thing. So when you awake as love, people use the word love for many things that are actually attachment, that are actually the opposite from freedom. But where love has the vibration of freedom, where love has the vibration of empowerment, this is when you wake up as love. And because you wake up as love, you're no longer controlled by authorities in the way that unawake people are. And this is not in the interest of people who created religions, of people who control states. So all organized religions, to be honest, and I've seen it from within when I was really inside the organized religion, are not interested in people that are really honestly sovereign beings that ask deep questions. The Bible is, there's the book of Job in the Bible, which my first book, many years in 94 or 95, I wrote my first book. And it's a commentary about the book of Job in the Bible. And the interesting thing with the book of Job is that Job asks deep questions. It's like really challenging God. And all the traditional people, all the rabbis, there were no rabbis, but all the traditional people back then, the friends of Job, they're coming, they're telling him all the answers and the conformism that is, coming with all the people who have all kind of certainties of religion, tradition. But Job is not accepting. He's like, no, I don't accept. My question is still valid, and I'm challenging God. And then eventually, when God shows up in the end of the book, when there is a revelation, Job says, it's not that you answered my questions, but I don't have questions anymore. But God says, cheers to Job. He's the right, he was right to ask those questions, and tells the friends of Job, all the traditional people, go and ask forgiveness, apologize to God. So the Bible is actually saying, at least in the book of Job, like, ask the big questions. Don't conform.
Mhm.
even to
Mhm.
tradition, even to what the sages did or what your ancestors did.
Mm.
Like, be like Job, like ask
Mhm.
the deep questions. But
Mhm.
religion is not interested in that. So
Mm.
religion is, and therefore, the way to control people is control their sexuality.
Mm. Mhm. So limit their sexuality, and in many ways, the very essence of why people are even having that conversation and being able to have a chance to meditate and to pray and to connect to God is because of sexuality, but it's the very thing that they're condemning underneath it, which to me just feels like a walking contradiction.
Yeah, well, it's not only sexuality; it's eroticism,
Hmm.
and eros is bigger than sexuality. You know, as we age, I think less of our eros is channeled directly to sexuality. A young body is more sexual, but an older body is can be still totally erotic. You can be. My teacher, actually, one of my teacher of Zalman, he died. He was almost 90. He was totally an erotic person, even on a
Hmm.
wheelchair, even as an old man. He wasn't, I believe he wasn't sexual, but he was totally erotic, and the light in his eyes you could see. And he was,
Hmm.
so eros is bigger than sex. You know, as I
Hmm.
said, eros is bringing atoms together. It's the coming together. It's the ability to open up in love
Hmm.
and to unite and to merge.
Hmm.
Um, and
So
yes,
to Yep.
mm,
Yeah, so to unite into love, and it's this merging of we're speaking about
mhm.
here is how do we then take that uniting of love, and lead from that place, to lead from a place that actually celebrates and brings in eros, knowing that it's going to be, at times attacked and ridiculed, which I know you've come across yourself, and still continue to, you know be going down that road in the jungle with a machete, and feel like you can still find your own 2 feet along the way, and especially now with what's happening in the world. I mean, to me, this conversation feels more alive and pertinent than anything, because what are we really fighting for? And I obviously there's a lot happening. You coming from Israel as well, and like, how do we take this leadership of love and apply it into a society to, in many ways, it feels like, to reclaim our righteousness and our truth-seeking capacity as humans, in these in souls inside this body, but humans having this experience, so that, it's not that we don't need to fight anymore, but how do we create a leadership of love on this planet, integrating these pieces and making it alive to something that people aren't afraid of, because in many ways people are afraid of eros. They're afraid of what it does and what it doesn't do.
Thank you. Let's take a deep breath. This is like
Yeah.
actually what I really, really wanted to speak. I was hoping to speak about.
Hmm.
Um, what is leadership of love today, and especially when we realize that love, epic love, is this combination of love, freedom, and empowerment.
Hmm.
Um, the love that is not taking away the empowerment of people, not disempowering people by guilt or shame or um, anything that takes away their ability to be sovereign,
Hmm.
but the love that allows everybody to feel sovereign. And what is leader? How does leadership work to bring about? I don't know if my connection was cut. So,
Oh yeah, I
how does
get you.
leadership? Yeah, how does leadership work to? If we want to create a society that will help everybody to be empowered,
Mhm.
that will help everybody to be sovereign beings and not follow authorities. So how do you become a leader of that? Because, you know, by definition, people look at you as a leader and they give you authority.
Mhm. Mhm.
And, you know, this is where what happened with me is like people naturally gave me authority that I didn't want to have. And because I didn't
Mm.
want to have it, it wasn't my blind spot. I did not recognize, I can say I did not recognize the way that people hold me um, as an authority and project on me issues that they have with authority from their parents, the teachers in school, in high school, in the army, if it's in Israel. Um, and you know, I wanted all the time to create a society, a community, and a society where leaders are humans and are
Mm.
seen as it's kind of older brothers, I would say, older
Mhm.
brothers, older sisters, and not as parents. Um, and I was trying to guide my community all the time, you know, I was trying to be a friend and just like someone along the way that maybe walked some steps ahead
Mhm.
and can
Mhm.
give some indication of the way. Um, but never wanted anyone to take me as an authority.
Mm.
Little that you know, it was a wishful thinking because people do come, um, if we call it conscious community, people come from the unconscious world and they come with their projections on, and they project parents on leaders and wish for the parents to be perfect, and the wish from leaders to be perfect.
Mm.
And what would it be if we as leaders can actually stand in the fire and say, like, I am owning my place as a leader of sort. You know, doesn't matter if you're what kind of leader you are, if you're a teacher, a political leader, or an author, or whatever it is, an artist. Um, I own my leadership, and I also own my shadows.
Mm. Mhm.
I actually want you to see me not as a perfect being, but as an imperfect being that is constantly working on myself to. I like this thing that says tomorrow I will make better mistakes.
Mm.
I will make better mistakes tomorrow. Like it doesn't mean that I will not make mistakes tomorrow. I just like learning from the past just makes it easier to make better mistakes tomorrow.
Mhm.
I do hope
Mhm.
to make better mistakes tomorrow.
Mm.
Um, so what it is to be invulnerable leadership.
Mm.
In the Talmud, the big Jewish text from medieval times, they actually say, um, I'll say it in Hebrew and then in English, אין ממנים פרנס על הציבור, אלא אם כן קופה של שרצים תלויה מאחוריו. Do not make anyone like a leader of the congregation unless they have a whole bank of impure issues hanging behind them.
Mhm.
Basically saying, we don't want someone who is pure and and okay um, as a leader. We want someone that is acknowledging that they're fucked up.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
so, and this is also in the Hasidic mysticism. They say this is the difference between King David and King Saul. Um, that King David was actually because he he made mistakes. He sinned in the language of the Bible. He made mistakes and he acknowledged that he made mistakes. That's why he became the symbol of leadership, while King Saul made mistakes and he couldn't recognize that he made mistakes. He was trying to justify himself. So I have to say, one of the big things that I learned in this year and a half that I was going through difficult times is I saw myself actually in a place that it was hard for me to acknowledge my own blind spots. Find myself in wanting to be seen for my wishes, for my it's very lonely to be a leader sometimes. You want friends, and you're hanging out with your community, and it's really hard to know that your community cannot be the people that you can totally play with. These are your community, and I always wanted to be part of the community, like totally part of the community, just like to create a community so I can have people to hang with, to play with. And from this kind of place of vulnerability, I wanted to be seen, and because I wanted to be seen in my vulnerability, I actually I became a bit defensive when people came to me with their issues. It's like, how can't you see, that I'm who I really am, and my wishes and vice versa. I just created the same thing. I wanted to be seen, and I created a situation that their wish to be seen was they felt unseen by me. It's a tragedy, and that happens a lot. And one of the things that I really worked on myself, and a lot with amazing help that I got from friends, and especially from Katara, my partner, who was kind of my coach in this, was actually to realize to be undefending myself, to open that leadership of love is the leadership that can actually stand in the fire with an open heart. And I was too defensive. I actually created situation that I'm sorry I did, because of my defensiveness. And for me, leadership of love is, first of all, a vulnerable leadership. It's a leadership that can I own my gifts, and I own the places that I can contribute to our society. And I also own my shadows. I own that I have shadows, that I have blind spots, and I am in a constant work in progress. I'm constantly in a work in progress. So don't project on me a perfect father, a perfect human being. I'm not. I'm definitely not. And I'm learning to look at people who come to me with complaints. It was really, really difficult for me to receive complaints. Knowing who I am, it's like the feeling when people came with complaints. The feeling was like, I kind of like, are you crazy? What are you talking about? It's like, you don't see me. The feeling in me is like, you don't see me. You don't see who I am. What are you projecting? What are you putting on me? It's like, it's crazy, but defensive, and they felt unseen. So it's part of leadership of love for me today is to learn how to receive complaints as a request for love.
Mm, mm,
Someone who comes with complaints is actually saying, I need help. Yes, they project it on me. Yes, it might be distorted and everything, but underneath it, there is the energy of like, I'm hurt and I need help.
mm.
And sometimes it's really hard to see that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I really appreciate and celebrate what I'm hearing you share, and I can also really feel the heart that comes with it. And I want to share, a personal experience that I had with you, really, when we first met. It took a training with you, and I remember for myself, coming from my own background and my own projections on what I thought a leader should be and all these things, and I remember being filled with a lot of judgments and ridicule, and actually bringing them up to you. I don't know if you remember this moment. I brought them
no,
up
I
to you
don't.
at the end of the training, and there was just this really beautiful place that said, yeah, yeah, okay, I'm all of that. And I was saying, you're this, you're that, and it was just like there actually wasn't a pushing away. There was just like a deep ownership of it, and it was such a shifting moment for me, because I realized I had put so many projections onto a leader to need to be something perfect. Like they needed to be something perfect, and they had no faults. And I witnessed you lead beautifully, but lead, and there were, there was there were aspects of some messiness and some things that came up, but there wasn't you fully owned it, and it was like a beautiful gift for me. That was a really beautiful gift, because I realized that it opened the doorway for me to step even more into my own leadership. And in witnessing the way in which you held, it gave me a deeper permission field to say, hey, I can do this. I'm never going to be perfect. No leader ever is going to be perfect. And anyone who thinks that they're going to be is actually, there's a ridiculousness to that. And in that moment, it was like, wow, okay, I can do this. Like there was a deeper permission field that came in, because there wasn't a denial of any of the things that I shared with you. There was an ownership of it, and there was a saying, hey, and you are this also inside of you, and is a reflection back to me. And it gave me a permission to say, okay, I'm ready to actually be more of a leader in this field that's edgy, that's gray, that works with sexuality, that works with eros, that works with, things that people are constantly ridiculing. So I just want to say thank you. Maybe it wasn't a moment you remember, but it was a shift for me in terms of how I was getting to and wanting to show up as a leader on this planet.
Thank you. No, I do not. I remember you in the training. That was like, I don't know, 8 years ago or 10 years ago. I don't know. But I don't remember this conversation, and I'm very happy that this, I could respond like this. I can just own it that I guess not always I responded like that. And there were certain times that people came to me. I think especially with complaints that had to do with sexual shadows, projecting all kind of shadows and sexuality on me. That it was harder for me to receive like that. Because I did not receive it like I did with you. I don't remember what you said about me, but because I did not receive it, I actually created a harsher situation for me. Sexual shadows is we all have sexual shadows as well. And shadows are not monsters, and this is important to know. Actually, just shadows that are unowned might become monsters. Shadows are just things that are not in the light of our consciousness. And the more we wake up, we can bring more and more aspects of ourselves that are not in the light of our consciousness into our consciousness. It starts with self-love, and this is one of the teachings that I carry from my Kabbalistic training, is like, equal to the amount of self compassion that you have for yourself is the amount of shadows that you can acknowledge.
Mm, mhm,
Um, an equation, because if you don't have enough compassion and you will acknowledge a lot of shadows, you'll just collapse.
mm,
Um, so there is an equation there, and it's beautiful. It's a constant work, and also it's more and more subtle. Like, the shadows that after years of working on shadows, you still have shadows. They're more subtle. People who do not own their shadows and try to hide the shadows even deeper and just to create a persona of like, hey, I'm pure, I'm okay,
mm,
and shadows become distorted,
mhm,
and from distorted shadows is where evil come. Like the evil in my language is the wish to harm others.
mhm, mhm,
um, the wish to harm, we know only hurt people.
mm,
um,
mm,
Only hurt people, and which means it's a distortion. The wish to hurt other people is because something happened to you and you're distorted. And so shadows that are unowned and like deeply unowned and pushed to the sellers and um, out of the light of consciousness, then they start to they knock stronger, and they
mhm,
become
mhm,
bigger, and they become monsters. And then when they go out, they're dangerous.
mm,
This is
mm,
this is what happens with a lot of people that only present, they're beautiful and they're not sexual, or they're very, very contained. And then they get drunk or something, and then their sexual monster comes out.
mm, mm,
But actually, so what I'm trying to say is that owning our sexual shadows is a beautiful part of becoming more and more aware.
mhm,
Is to say, yes, I do have aspects that are shadowy, and shadow is not bad. Shadow is just like less in the realm of awareness, some
mhm,
blind spots.
mhm,
So I constantly find things that are in my blind spots.
mm.
By the way, I have, yeah.
No, no, go,
Hmm?
go
I
ahead.
have a literal blind spot. I looked at this.
Oh,
I'm one of those people who like, I'm crazy since I was a child. So as a child, I looked directly at the sun in a time of eclipse because the teacher said you can't, and I was like, yes, I can. Um, I just I burnt the inner retina of one of my eyes, so I literally have a blind spot,
mm,
physical blind
mm.
spot burnt. I see the sun all the time inside myself.
In your eye. Wow. Well, I've heard of
In
friends
my
doing a
eye.
little this happening with sun gazing for a little bit too long. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
in regards to, leadership, and there's a lot more beings that are coming out into the world, and you could say they're, sexual or erotic leaders, and they're trying to integrate this work and support people, and, getting themselves into this field more and more. And, I guess the question is, like, to some of that, whether it's a younger generation or people who have, taken the tantra practitioner training, or done the sacred sexuality training, or worked with eros, and they want to start to lead and support people, whether it's one-to-one sessions or facilitation, and what would be some of the, you could say, words of advice or encouragement to do it with some of the things that you've learned along the way, and to do it with a level of integrity, but also to not lose the divine sacred power of eros. Like, where is this line between where we can, own our erotic body, own the part of us that is living and breathing as eros, and not just become a regurgitation of information, to actually hold inside a sacred field that celebrates eros, but then, doesn't get so pulled into what can be for many people the shadows of eros that haven't been owned and integrated. So someone who's really wanting to lead in this field, like what would be some of the suggestions or takeaways that you could support them with?
Thank you for the question. Community. Be part of a community, practice transparency. I think one of the problems of leaders is that they are not part of community. Part of, this is part of the illness of our society today, that we're not arranged in intimate communities. Have a community that of intimate people. I'm not speaking about, Facebook community, a real community, even if this community is 5 people, 10 people, but people who see you, who you live in transparency with, meaning you can speak about everything. Don't keep, especially sexual issues, in the dark. Practice speaking about everything that you do, that you want to do, that you wish to do, that you're dreaming of, with trusted people. This is, in my eyes, crucial, because then you get real feedback from friends and community. You're being seen. A lot of what happened, and it happens actually not only in tantric communities, but in Buddhist communities, and in everywhere, places that present themselves as if there is we don't deal with sexuality, or there is no connection between the people in power and the congregation or the community or the participants. It's not happening in our school. And then it's just a matter of time until a scandal will come to the light, something that the teacher or the teachers or the people in power were trying to hide. So one of the things that I made myself as a rule of thumb for myself, I never hid anything. I was living, and I still am living my life, my erotic life, my love life, totally in transparency, with the people that I'm in trainings that I do. I challenge people to be transparent about what's happening with them, what they're doing. Not continue this habit of sex is not something we talk about. We will talk about all kinds of spiritual things and not talk about what happened, or who we want to explore with, or maybe we had an exploration with. I actually invite people and invite the leaders. Actually speak about yourself. And not always with your students, but at least have a community of people that you can have peer review, but a real one, a transparent and vulnerable one. Never. I think if people live double life, like there is a life of the persona and the life of the real person, that's a recipe for disaster. So be real, be real. Explore yourself, explore your shadows, explore your, and also accept it that you are an erotic being, and it's beautiful. If you teach sexuality, allow sexuality to run through you, and be an erotic being. Be an erotic being in whatever it is. Some people have eros with the cosmos and not with people. Some people whatever erotic being you are. Maybe you're monogamous, maybe you're polyamorous, and maybe you're a cosmoerotic person. And that's okay, but allow eros to flow through you, so you don't deny sexuality and speak about sexuality. I see a lot of the phenomenon in people who engage with tantra is actually a deep fear from sexuality, a deep fear from eros that is disguised under tantric ways to control eros. It's basically using whatever tantric Taoist techniques, breathe like this, control, contract here, move the energy up, like all those, it's basically the same shame from sexuality and eros that you got from your parents and from your church and from school. You just now use tantric and Taoist words to speak about it, but you never actually did the work of unshaming sexuality. And unshaming the fact that you have sexual shadows. And I want to explain what I mean when I say sexual shadows. We sexualize as we grow up and we become sexual beings. We start to sexualize needs. So the need to be acknowledged becomes sexualized. And I'm trying to get acknowledgement and validation through having sex. The need to be seen is sexualized. And in order to be seen, some people feel like, well, only if I have sex with this person, I will be seen. The need for status, the need for belonging. This is something that happened, and we need to be aware of. Like, people want to belong to community, and the tantric or conscious community is a cool community. And some people, I know that in ISTA, I didn't realize it enough how much people sexualize themselves because they think, they assume a wrong assumption that in order to belong, they need to be sexual. And I mean, this is so sad. This is so sad. I want to say, you can belong. In order to belong, you need to be authentic. And if your authenticity is that you want to sleep with many people, go ahead. But if your authenticity is that you want to be monogamous or not to have sex at all, it's like, be authentic. This is what I want. The ticket to enter the conscious community should be in integrity and be authentic, whatever it is. But it happened because we did not speak enough about it. I think we did not speak enough about it. So people got the feeling that, oh, this is the sexual shamanic community. I need to sleep with many people. I need to be very sexual and open in order to belong. And this is very, very sad. So the need to belong is sexualized. The need to feel like I'm a man is sexualized. The need to feel like, oh, I'm a woman is sexualized. So all those things are sexualized, and basically people want to have sex, but they don't say why. They're not aware of like what actually is pushing me to want to have sex. And when we start to ask ourselves questions, then we start to become aware of our sexual shadows. And I'm not saying that it's wrong. There is nothing wrong. You might say like, I am aware of that and I want to do it like this. And that's okay. The problem is when we're not aware. When you're not aware,
Mm.
unaware we go into sexuality when actually what happens in us, there are other needs that are trying to work through sexuality, and then it creates misery.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, exploring our sexual shadows, even as leaders, even as tantric leaders or teachers, the fact that you're a tantric teacher doesn't mean that you finished to deal with your things from childhood, with your need for a nipple, with your need, with your shame from how do you call it, potty training,
Mhm.
uh, from yeah, there's so deep in ancient fears and shames. Some of them are personal, some of them are coming um, through the ancestral line. They are generational, and we carry them, and it's okay to carry them. It's really okay to be fucked up
Mm.
if we're aware of it.
Mhm.
Because we're humans. Because we're
Mhm.
humans. I feel, in Hebrew, in Kabbalistic Hebrew, there's this word anava,
Mm.
which literally means humility, but actually, in Kabbalistic meaning, it's humility plus audacity.
Mm.
It's the way to be in audacity, like to say, like, no, I'm a great soul. I'm a I'm a sacred soul. I'm a miracle.
Mhm.
There's no one like me in the whole history of the universe. I'm here to bring something. And I'm also fucked up like any other human being.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
exists at the same fucking time.
Mhm.
And I don't need to hide any of it.
Mm.
So holding the the complexity of what it is to be human
Mm. Mm.
um, is, what my big advice to anyone who steps into this field is to be in anava, is to hold the complexity and
Mm.
of the complexity of yourself and be in integrity. And part of integrity is owning your shadows,
Mm.
being a humble and vulnerable leader. Allow yourself to acknowledge that you made mistakes
Mm.
when you made mistakes, even if even acknowledge it a year later. It's okay. Just like whenever you can, just acknowledge
Mhm. Mhm.
and 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 help create another culture that is not like our cancel culture today. The cancel culture is coming from a place that is totally immature. There's still like, oh, if you're a leader and you made the mistakes, we cancel you. Like, no, actually, if you're I don't know if it's true, but I heard this beautiful story about someone that worked for Bill Gates in Microsoft and made a big mistake that they lost $5 million. And he came to Bill Gates and said, like, well, I'm sorry, and I take responsibility. I'm sure you're going to fire me. That's okay. And Bill Gates said, like, fire you? Are you crazy? I just invested $5 million in your education.
Yeah. 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 I love that. I love the place of actually celebrating that we are not perfect and that the thing I heard a lot from what you were sharing is to have a deeper level of awareness, and with awareness requires greater responsibility, and that's also with the humility to step forth, knowing that no matter what's shared, people are going to have their thoughts and opinions. Haters are going to hate. People are going to have their thoughts and ideas. But actually, to be a leader in this way, there's a deep vulnerability and a humility and a strength of the soul. The words you shared, and the audacity of the soul to actually set up and say, "Hey, I'm standing for what I believe in this world. Not everyone's going to love it, but I'm going to do it out of the integrity of my heart, the integrity of my soul." So thank you for doing that in the world. Thank you for the way you showed up. It's a gift and a joy to have you in my life. And yeah, I'd love to kind of complete if there's anything that's coming up next for you, or any exciting projects or new writings that you're doing. I know you have a couple of books out yourself. and anything you'd like to share with the audience about what's upcoming for you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, there are the books, of course, Kadesha, that is like online in Amazon. But the new creation is that I'm really excited about is um, the the journeys that we call Black Butterfly that I lead with Katara,
Mm,
created with her and leading with her. We just finished one that was an amazing. I mean, it was so good that people immediately said, like, "When are you doing another one?" And we are doing another one in mid-February in Cyprus.
mm,
Um, and the the idea of the black butterfly is basically what we talked about: is own your shadows,
mhm,
open your wings, and fly.
mm.
So to basically, it's a journey into the initiation of the soul, and I can talk about it for a long time, which is I'm not because we're closing this, but yeah, it's an 8-day journey of initiation of the soul, which we make the parallel to the life of to the metamorphosis of a caterpillar
Mm,
becoming a butterfly.
mm,
Like, imagine what it is for the psychology of the caterpillar to think of becoming a butterfly. It's like such a different being. I mean, even different
mm,
DNA. Um, that's why it needs to go into the cocoon, into the chrysalis, and totally go through transformation and metamorphosis from someone who's consuming and eating leaves to someone who's going to. I mean, what is the life of a butterfly? Drinking nectar and making, flying and making love and being
mm,
and being being marvelous. Uh,
mhm, mhm.
that's so. This is the life of your soul. So, what it is to live the life of your soul deeper in this world.
Mm,
I'll just say that when we experience trauma, there are parts of our soul that are leaving.
mm,
And when we go through initiation, there are parts of our soul that are coming down into the body.
mm, mm,
And I have talks about it, and it's part of my burning fire now in these days is how can we take our life experience? What does it take to not be victims of traumatic experiences, but to use everything as an initiation of our, which is it, it's what it is. Our soul is trying to initiate us to become more mature, more powerful, more magnificent, and to live powerfully in this life, owning the grief, owning the sorrow, owning the anger, owning our shadows, and opening the black butterfly wings. So,
mm.
yeah, this is like something that is really alive for me, and we're gonna do another one in February, as I said, mid-February in Cyprus, and probably later as well. Um, this, these journeys are really, I feel, needed, especially because the field is so much talking about trauma today. When we speak about trauma, we see that everybody is fragile,
Mm, mhm,
potential fragile. When you realize that everything that is traumatic can be also experienced from different perspective as an initiation of the soul, you you move away from the fragility into like we are fucking here to experience life, to experience death, to experience difficult situations,
mm,
high energy triggers, but we want
mm,
to initiate ourselves through this. So
mhm,
this is what I'm up to today. I'm
mm,
less working with beginners and more working with people who did already a lot, and willing to dive deeper. I'm really excited about um, guiding leaders, actually young leaders, people who want to work with a lot of people, and if I can give them from my experience of the last 30 years of teaching, I'm happy to do that.
mm, mm. Beautiful. Love that. Yeah. Well, thank you for continuing to pave the way forward. Thank you continue to hold your machete and cut through the jungle. There's lots of jungle here in Bali that I see every day, so I can definitely appreciate the analogy. And yeah, I appreciate you. I really love and respect you, and thank you for showing up in my life as you have, and for continuing to stand alongside and be a fellow brother on this journey of opening people's hearts and remembering the sacred connection to God, to divinity, to Eros. So I appreciate you, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you.
Yeah. Till next time.
Thank you for amazing questions.
You're very welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye.